The Renaissance wasn't just about art, beauty, and genius. Behind the painters, the popes and princes, there was money. And behind that money, one family pulling the strings. The Medici didn't just fund the Renaissance. They invented the economy that made it possible. They turned banking into empire, coins into crowns, and loans into power. They were the blueprint for every oligarch and dynasty who's ever used wealth to rule from the shadows. If you love the hidden machinery behind history, hit like and subscribe before we go on. Now let's dive in. To understand the Medici, understand their world. The late 14th century was no golden age. Europe was reeling from the Black Death, which killed a third of the population. Wars drained treasuries. The feudal system was breaking down. And what replaced it wasn't democracy. It was money. Trade routes reopened after the Crusades. Merchants grew rich on spices, wool, and silk. Cities like Florence became hubs of commerce, not just cathedrals, but workshops and counting houses. Power was shifting from land to finance. And into this world stepped Giovanni de' Medici. In 1397, he founded the Medici Bank. Giovanni understood the game. Money moved across borders faster than armies. He set up branches across Europe, Venice, Rome, Geneva, Bruges, even London. The Medici Bank wasn't just a local lender. It was a multinational network in an age when most people never left their village. If you were a merchant shipping wool, a noble paying for a war, or the Pope collecting indulgences, the Medici handled your money. And that last part is key. The Medici became the bankers of the church. They handled papal finances, indulgences, tithes, the revenue of salvation itself. In a world where everyone feared damnation, the church sold forgiveness and the Medici counted the cash. They profited from sin and salvation at once. That gave them not just money, but influence over the most powerful institution in Europe. Cosimo de' Medici, Giovanni's son, turned this into an empire. But he didn't seize Florence with armies, he bought it. He spread wealth strategically, loans to allies, bribes to rivals. In 1433, when his enemies briefly exiled him, he bribed the right men, and within a year he was back, ruling from behind the scenes. He didn't call himself king. He didn't sit on a throne, but every decision passed through him. He became Cosimo the Elder, not for his age, but his status. He understood what every oligarch since has copied. You don't need titles if you have money. The Medici didn't dominate Florence by decree. They dominated it by loans. If a politician owed them, he voted their way. If a rival challenged them, they bought him out or ruined him. Florence became a republic in name, but a Medici business in reality. And they didn't just buy politics. They bought immortality through art. Cosimo funded public works that turned Florence into a city of beauty, but also propaganda. He commissioned Brunelleschi's dome for the cathedral, a feat so bold it became a symbol of Florence's greatness and the Medici who paid for it. Every corner whispered, the Medici made this possible. Lorenzo de' Medici, the Magnificent, took it further. He ruled Florence in the late 15th century and turned patronage into strategy. He funded Botticelli, who painted The Birth of Venus, and a young Michelangelo, who sculpted under Medici protection. To the world, Florence looked like it was flourishing under culture. In reality, Lorenzo was using culture to mask politics. His family controlled the institutions. His enemies were dealt with ruthlessly. When rivals plotted against him in the Pazzi conspiracy of 1478, assassins attacked him inside the cathedral during Mass. Lorenzo survived. His brother was stabbed to death at the altar. The conspirators were hunted down and strung up from the windows of Florence, and the Medici grip only tightened. But the most outrageous part is how they turned bankers into popes. Yes, popes. The Medici produced two, Pope Leo X and Pope Clement VII. Imagine that. The family that managed the church's money put its own sons on the throne of St. Peter. Pope Leo X, famous for saying, "Since God has given us the papacy, let us enjoy it," treated the Vatican like a Medici estate. He sold indulgences aggressively to fund lavish festivals and bankroll Medici influence. Ironically, it was this sale of indulgences that triggered Martin Luther's rebellion in 1517, sparking the Protestant Reformation. The Medici popes' greed helped fracture the church itself. And they didn't stop at popes. Catherine de' Medici married King Henry II of France and became Queen of France. For 3 decades, she influenced French politics, even ruling as regent for her sons. Medici blood wasn't just in Florence. It was on the throne of France. At their peak, the Medici wealth was staggering. Their bank handled the finances of the Vatican and kings. Their coin, the gold florin, became the international currency of Europe. They didn't just run a bank. They ran the financial system of the entire Renaissance world. But like every dynasty built on money and power, the empire cracked. By the late 15th century, the bank was struggling. Mismanagement, risky loans, and corruption weakened it. Branches in London and Bruges collapsed after monarchs defaulted. By 1494, the Medici were expelled from Florence, their wealth confiscated. For a moment, it seemed the mighty family had been erased. But power like this doesn't vanish. It mutates. Within a generation, the Medici were back, using marriage alliances, papal connections, and brute force. In 1532, the Republic was dissolved, and Alessandro de' Medici became the first Duke of Florence. Later, Cosimo I became Grand Duke of Tuscany, creating a dynasty that lasted 2 centuries. The bankers had become royals. Still, their true legacy wasn't the titles. It was the system they invented. The Medici showed that finance could be the foundation of political power. They used credit to control governments, patronage to control culture, and family alliances to control dynasties. When you admire Michelangelo's David, you're not just seeing art. You're seeing propaganda monuments paid for by a family laundering power through beauty. And their fingerprints are still on our world. The Medici turned patronage into influence. Billionaires today do the same through philanthropy. The Medici controlled politics through loans. Today's corporations do it through lobbying and bailouts. The playbook hasn't changed. Only the names have. Just as the Medici popes sold indulgences to fill their coffers, modern governments quietly tax you through inflation, eroding your savings, while telling you it's for the greater good. The Renaissance wasn't born from nothing. It was financed. Behind the genius of Florence stood a counting house. Behind Michelangelo stood a banker's ledger. Behind the throne of St. Peter stood Medici gold. The Medici may be gone, their dynasty extinct, but the system they created never left us. Real wealth isn't measured in coins, it's measured in control. Money doesn't just talk, it rules. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. If this gave you a new perspective on how money and power really work, hit like and subscribe because history always has the answers. You just have to know where to look.